to all new Nooga Radio and NoogaRadio.com, 92.7 FM. The show is Clutch with Keon Rose. And we have, look, we're coming up to the end of our football right here. So we've got some football stories, and of course, the offseason in college football has begun. So we've got that going on. There might be some issues involving Tom Brady that might affect the playoffs this weekend. We need to figure out in the Hall of Fame, Barry Bonds, Roger Clemens, are they getting in? And we need to revisit, I think, the rather old sports talk question, which is, should these guys even be in the first place? I say yes, but still a lot of people say no. A lot of people are on the wrong side of that. So I'd like to hear your opinion. Obviously, you can call our number at 423-800-8949. That's 800-8949. Pretty easy dial, you guys. So there's that. So let's start with some college football news, because I think that the committee in college football played a very big part in what we ultimately saw as the national title game. And a lot of people agreed or disagreed. We had a whole bunch of controversies. We had the UCF controversy. They were undefeated and they deserved to make the playoff. I don't think so. I looked at their schedule, undefeated, playing the toughest team being Memphis. I don't think that gets in. Right? Like, Memphis is a quality opponent, but you never played anybody in the top 5 when they were in the top 5 for the entire season. So no, I just didn't think that they did enough to get in. But the committee, they changed this up from year to year. There are going to be new people sitting on the committee. And I think we got a good bunch of people here. Right? We have Paula Boyvin, who is the former sports journalist. Joe Castiglione, who was the athletic director at Oklahoma. Ken Hatfield, who is a retired college football coach. Ronnie Lott, former San Francisco 49er, and also, obviously, former college football athlete. Todd Stansbury, who's the AD at Georgia Tech. Scott Strickland, who is the athletic director at Florida. They've all been added to the committee and have agreed to 3-year terms to being on the committee. So it's going to be another 3 years before we have a committee change-up. And I think that this is a smart move. This is one of my favorite things about this new college football system, is that we have a committee of people that sits down and basically determines who the best teams in the nation are, which is hardly scientific, right? Like, it's hardly the best way necessarily of going about it, except if you watch the games, as the season progresses, you actually do tend to come up with a pretty reasonable idea as to who is and isn't good. And I don't know. I can't tell you with 100% certainty that the teams that we've gotten in the national title games are the best teams. Right? I can't tell you that. But I can tell you one thing about that, though, which is that we've gotten some damn good games. Right? Like, we've gotten the Alabama, Georgia is a great game. Clemson, Alabama 2, that was a fun game. Clemson, Alabama 1 was a fun game. And even though Ohio State and Oregon, that wasn't necessarily the most fun game, Ohio State gave us the most fun storyline, right? They start 3 different quarterbacks in 3 different games in order to get to the national title. And a guy who had not ever started a quarterback before blows another team out of the water. And the other team has Marcus Mariota, who winds up going number 2 in that draft. Like, we get just a litany of great stories and great games since we've had the committee, right? And that's the thing that people always defended the BCS system with, was, well, when you watch it, do you not feel like you've gotten the best 2 teams in the nation playing each other? And I wasn't sure with the BCS, right? Like, you just use a bunch of computers. I don't know how much computers can account for when you look at a team and know that they're good and know that they're the best. Like, how can a computer have holes in its analysis of that? Like, I think that it can. And I think that I would trust people over that at this point, right? It's just because there's just too much subjective on with it. And I think the committee has been asked to make in the last couple of years some very tough calls. They had to make that UCF call. And UCF beats Auburn and maybe leaves a few more question marks than anyone would like to have still out there. But that's a tough call that they had to make. They had to make a tough call the year before with the Big Ten. Do you go with Ohio State, who was the better football team last year? Do you go with Penn State, who won the league and also was an incredible football team last year? Who do you go with? I mean, there was a bunch of wrong answers, right? The committee had to pick from a bunch of undesirable answers. And I think they did a pretty good job, ultimately. It's a tough spot that those people wind up being in. So I understand why people are critical of the committee. But I still think that this system provides us with a bunch of really good games come bowl season. And the national title game has been fantastic basically every year. Every year, we've gotten a great game. And to me, that's the best defense of the way things are now. Right? I mean, I was on a forum today and people were talking about how about the committee are a bunch of crooks. Which, okay. Sure. Granted, that person was an Auburn fan. Right? And Auburn just didn't deserve to be in the playoff. And if they had beaten UCF, they would have had a case. But they didn't. When they had an opportunity to prove that they should have been in the playoff, they went ahead and proved that they shouldn't have ever been anywhere close. Listening to all new Nooga Radio, NoogaRadio.com, Clutch with Keon Rose. So that's one thing. And then the other thing is, obviously, Alabama, who just won the national title, has to now find yet another offensive coordinator, because this is the curse of being the Alabama Crimson Tide, is that you're usually very good. And when you're usually very good, people assume that your coaches are very good. And if people assume that your coaches are very good, they hire your coaches away. They hire coordinators, right? And we've seen it happen year after year after year. Georgia hires Kirby Smart away from Alabama this year. Tennessee hires Jeremy Pruitt away from Alabama. Mike DeBoer goes back to the NFL. When you have the string of success that Alabama has had, you tend to have people hiring away your coaches at a fairly high rate. And I think that actually is one of the bigger testaments to Nick Saban as head coach, is that it really doesn't seem to matter when you take away his offensive and defensive coordinators. It doesn't really seem to change the success and or the trajectory of the team. The team still is better than everyone else anyway. And that level of sustained success, that to me is why Nick Saban is the greatest living college football coach, and arguably the greatest college football coach that ever lived. Right? Like, you just go dead or alive. Like, Nick Saban should probably still be number one on your list, because I think he's past Bear Bryant. He'll never admit it, but he has. He absolutely has. Like, this level of dominance is not. I mean, it's not anything we've ever seen before, and we may never see a level of dominance like this again. Where, outside of maybe women's college basketball, do you see anything that looks like this? Because I don't see it. Like, nothing looks like this in sports anymore. Absolutely nothing. So Nick Saban has his coordinators hired away at a very high rate. And Nick Saban is probably staying in-house for the offensive coordinator position. The replacement for Brian DeBoer might just be from inside the Alabama locker room. There is I don't want to say rumor, but there's a report going around that wide receivers coach Mike Locksley is expected to be named the new man in charge of the Crimson Tide's offense per footballscoop.com, which tends to be fairly accurate. But Locksley joined Alabama, the coaching staff, prior to the season, and he's been a popular name for the job for a while. Right, and he's been instrumental in helping that team's receivers. And again, when you look at Alabama, they have a number of talented receivers, one of which, of course, is Calvin Ridley, who is entering this year's NFL draft. But the players like him. He's gotten a big endorsement from running back Damian Harris, along with several of the receivers. So again, this is important because Nick Saban, of course, is a defensive-minded guy. So when you bring in an offensive guy to Alabama, that guy's fingerprints are all over what the offense does and what the offense looks like, right? Like when Lane Kiffin was the offensive coordinator at Alabama, it was very much a Lane Kiffin offense, right? And I don't think that Jalen Hurts could necessarily have been Jalen Hurts without Lane Kiffin. Lane Kiffin loves the spread attack. Lane Kiffin loves to move his quarterback out of the pocket, roll his quarterback out, let him attack down the field vertically off of rollouts and play action fakes. I mean, that's the bread and butter of his offense, and it worked very well for Jalen Hurts. And Jalen Hurts had a ton of success with it. And he had a ton of success this past year, too. But obviously, we saw a lot of those shortcomings in the national title game. And the reason why they had to go to Tua Tagovailoa is because Jalen Hurts developed some really bad habits because he was being turned into a pocket passer, and he's not really that. Right? So he'd run away. Like the first sign of pressure, he'd take off. Well, that's not helpful at all. So he's running away, and he's basically messing up the route tree of all of his receivers because he's taking off at the first sign of pressure. Now they all have to scramble and orient themselves towards him. It's not helping the offense. And so Tua is a much more natural fit if what you're saying is we're going to run a traditional power offense. It's a more natural fit because off of the play action fake, you don't have to roll out. You don't have to move the quarterback anywhere. You expect the quarterback to navigate inside the pocket. And Tua showed what damage that he could do there. Right? So it's interesting to me because it's going to determine the future of what it is that Alabama does, not just offensively, but with these two quarterbacks. You're listening to All New Nooga Radio, NoogaRadio.com, Clutch with Keon Rose, here on 92.7 FM. Like the fate of these two quarterbacks are very much going to be now in the hands of Mike Locksley. And I could not honestly tell you what it is that Mike Locksley likes to do offensively. He's been a receivers coach. He's never been an offensive coordinator. So I don't know exactly what his style and philosophy would be, if it's going to be something more like what Duvall wanted to do, or if it's something more like what Kiffin did. Is Mike Locksley a spread offensive guy? Because he does have a lot of experience coaching wide receivers, but the teams that he has coached wide receiver with, he's been a wide receiver tight end coach when he joined Army back in '96. And since then, he coached at Maryland, Florida, Illinois, and New Mexico prior to joining Nick Saban's staff. And what's interesting about that particular history is the stops that include Maryland and Army, because those two schools do not run conventional offenses, right? Like we know that Army runs a lot of triple option, like a ton. That's the meat and potatoes of their offense. There's not a whole lot of throwing the ball in that offense to begin with. So being a wide receiver tight end coach there, I imagine involves teaching guys a whole lot of blocking. And then I would say a similar thing for Maryland. Maryland runs, at least currently, Maryland runs an offense that looks something like the Wildcat. Like it's very run heavy. It's very direct snap heavy. The quarterback is not a great passer, but he doesn't have to be because, again, you're relying on those wide receivers to block. And so I think that there's a whole lot of blocking going on. And by the way, Mike Locksley himself didn't play wide receiver when he was in college. Right? He was at Townsend State in college. He played defensive back. And again, that guy can, once you play defensive back, you know how to coach wide receiver because all you're trying to do as a defensive back is defeat wide receiver and defeat wide receiver techniques. So he's good. I'm not knocking Mike Locksley. What I am saying is we have no idea. There is no basis based on the places that he has coached and what he himself has done to guess what it is that his offense is going to look like. And I think that that's important because you've got Jalen Hurts, who's a very good quarterback, okay? My guy is 26-2 as a starter. This is not someone that can't play the game. And I understand that he's playing on an Alabama team where the defense is king, where they run the ball often. But Jalen Hurts was the running game too. Okay, this is not a situation where he was just a game manager. He was part of the running game too. And Tua comes in, freshman, doesn't play any significant minutes, goes on and is the hero of the national title game, right? Like, hands down. But he's more of a pocket passer. And I couldn't, like, we don't have enough information to tell you whether or not Mike Locksley prefers Tagovailoa to Hurts, what that means for either guy. Is there going to be any kind of a transfer going down? Because there is a rumor going around that Jalen Hurts may transfer. But Jalen Hurts, I don't know if you've ever seen any interviews with Jalen Hurts or Jalen Hurts' dad specifically, but they're the classic, we do things the right way family. Right? They do things the way they're traditionally done. If coach benches you, he benched you. Right? Like, they're not necessarily trying to rock the boat on this one, right? Like, Jalen Hurts' dad is no LeVar Ball. Right? Like, LeVar Ball's entire existence is rock the boat. No, man, I'm going to rock the planet. Like, he's not even interested in doing things in the way in which they were even marginally traditionally done. Jalen Hurts and Jalen Hurts' dad are. Like, they do things by the book. And the classy thing to do here would be, look, I'm one play away from being the starter. That's the way you've got to see it. That's the mindset you've got to have. I'm always one play away from being the starter. My team needs me to be a backup. If my team needs me to be a backup, I'll be a backup. That's the classical, classy way to do this. And we've seen increasingly in college football that the classical way of doing this is not necessarily the way that it's done anymore. That if you have aspirations, if you have hopes, if you have dreams of making it to the NFL and being a quarterback at the NFL level, then the one thing that you must do is gain exposure. And how you gain exposure is entirely involved in making sure that you are the guy who's a starter, making sure you're the guy that plays, right? That's the reason why the rumor about Tua transferring is that if Tua Tagovailoa didn't play in the national title game, then he was going to transfer. That was the rumor. I actually believe that one more than anything else. But he was going to transfer. And to me, that's crazy. But that's more in line with the way that things are done these days in college football than the way that it used to be. Like, that's the way that they're done. That's the structure that we follow. And we've seen it. Right? Like, we've seen Will Grier transfer away. We've seen Jalen Hurd transfer out of Tennessee in the middle of the season, which nobody likes. No, I don't have a problem with it because coaches agreed to coach other teams before, during bowl games. I don't have a problem with it. But a lot of people did. But this is the way that this works. You try and gain as much exposure as you can because you want to be seen by NFL scouts. You want to be taken high early in the draft so you can get paid, so you can make money for this thing that you've been doing for free your entire life. And you finally have a shot to make some money doing it. So you're not going to let the coach benching you stop that. So you transfer. Right? And I think that Jalen Hurts is actually the kind of guy. And his dad also comes off as the kind of guy that will do things the way that they used to be done. There's a certain level, too, where Jalen Hurts is very grateful to Nick Saban for the opportunity to be a quarterback. Nobody recruited this guy. Right? Like, Jalen Hurts went to Channelview High School in Channelview, Texas. I'm from Texas, and I couldn't find Channelview on a map. I don't know where that is. Nobody recruited him. And him and his dad put together a tape and sent it out to a bunch of coaches, and only Nick Saban called back. Right? Like, that's the only one. So there's a certain level of appreciation that that family has for Nick Saban for giving Jalen Hurts the opportunity to be the quarterback of that team. And then there's a loyalty there that just is ingrained in the kid. Right? Like, you listen to Jalen Hurts, and he's very smart. He's very pragmatic with his words. He doesn't just say stuff. Like, all of this stuff matters. So I don't think he's just transferring out. But that still does bring up the issue of, well, like, next year, week 1 of the college football season, who's your quarterback? And with the information that we have on Mike Locksley, nobody can answer that question right now. You're listening to all new Nooga Radio, NoogaRadio.com. Clutch with Keon Rose here on 92.7 FM.
The Tennessee Valley's news talk leader, Nooga Radio, digital FM 95.3 HD4 and 92.7 FM. 3, 2, 1. Chattanooga Radio, digital FM 95.3 HD4, 92.7 FM's news now.
And in Dade County, a train derailment is under investigation on Highway 11 with Norfolk Southern and the Trenton Police Department trying to find out what exactly happened. The cause is still under investigation. Each of the trains weighs 200 tons each. A crane had to be called in to lift it out of the way. TVA seeing near record energy usage this morning as millions of customers sought to ward off the temperatures in the teens, blanketing most of the South. Peak power demand for the giant utility registered at 31,640 megawatt at 10 a.m. today. The average temperatures at the time were about 12 degrees. TVA calling it the 11th highest winter peak in TVA history. Meanwhile, in Cleveland, a 17-car pileup on Paul Huff Parkway in Cleveland. No injuries reported, but lots of damage to vehicles. Drivers said the sliding was uncontrollable. Russell Stroud, Radio News Talk 92.7 now.
Chattanooga Morning News with Russ and Val, weekdays from 6 to 9 a.m. on Nooga Radio, 92.7 FM.
Oh man, rush. I've got to get stuff for the party. Where can I go that's going to get me a wide selection of your wines and spirits? Oh, I got it. I'll go to Harry's Wine and Spirits, Signal Mountain. Maybe East Brainerd Wine and Spirits in East Brainerd. I could go to Riley's Wines and Spirits in Hickson. Wow, look at the huge selection in here. Look at these great prices. Amazing. Oh yeah, I'm going to find something for my lady too. I'm going to make this party a success.
Make your party a success when you stop in at Harry's Wine and Spirits in Signal Mountain, East Brainerd Wine and Spirits in East Brainerd, and Riley's Wine and Spirits in Hickston.
An automated nuclear missile defense system has suddenly entered into launch mode, and you are the only one who can stop it.
Escape Experience Chattanooga.
Your team has just been infected with the deadly virus. Your only hope? There, an abandoned farmhouse.
Escape Experience Chattanooga.
Handcuffed in a maximum security prison, you have an hour to flee.
Escape Experience Chattanooga.
These escape scenarios and more at Chattanooga's best escape room game and team building platform. Call now. Slots are limited. Register online at escapeexperience.com/Chattanooga. Escape Experience Chattanooga.
If your computer is running slow, if you have viruses, if someone called you asking to get into your computer, just say no. If a screen pops up on your computer saying your data is going to be deleted, then you have to call this number. Don't call it. You need to call Affordable Computers. You wouldn't invite a stranger to come to your house to look at all your books and records. So why would you invite someone to look at your records on your computer? With one wrong click of the mouse, you could be allowing access into your entire system. At Affordable Computers, we can stop them now. Don't be fooled by scammers and pop-ups that tell you must call this number or your hard drive is going to be deleted. You need to call Affordable Computers. Call Affordable Computers now. Microsoft is never going to call you. Microsoft is never going to ask you to call them. If you see that on your screen, you are being scammed. Stop it. Call Affordable Computers. 423-499-1975. That's 423-499-1975. In Fort Oglethorpe, call 706-858-5888. That's 706-858-5888. Affordable Computers.
95.3 HD4, 92.7 FM.
Expect fair to partly cloudy skies to continue through your nighttime. Cold overnight, lows mid and upper 20s. Now for your Wednesday, look for some sunshine with a breeze out of the north, though. Like cold highs up around 40 with more mainly dry and cold weather expected through Friday. Celebrate the new year with Dixieland fireworks, locally owned with the largest selection around. A Black Cat dealer with the lowest prices in Dixieland fireworks, just off I-75 on Ringgold Road, East Ridge. And I'm George 12, Chief Meteorologist, Pat Report.
Broadcasting live to over 1 million souls in Chattanooga, the Tennessee Valley, and beyond on frequency modulation 92.7. Sean Hannity, 25,000 watts on digital FM 95.3 HD4. CBS Radio News, NASCAR, Bloomberg Markets, David Tulis, streaming strong at Noogaradio.com. Live on YouTube and Facebook. Nooga Radio, News Talk 92.7. Chattanooga Radio.
You're listening to all new Nooga Radio and NoogAradio.com, 92.7 FM. Thank you for joining me today, making me just a small part of your day. You know that I appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you. But, okay, so I want to talk a little bit about the NFL, as I mentioned before. Not too much, because I give my picks out on Thursdays. So you listen on Thursday to figure out exactly where it is that we're leaning with some of this stuff. There is something that is going to impact my decision that happened today, which is that Tom Brady did not go to the media press conference that he usually goes to, that you're required to go to if you're a player in the league. Right? You're required to go to interview, to go to the press conference if you're expected to be the starter. Well, Tom Brady, not expected to be the starter, possibly. Right? Tom Brady is put on an injury list in the playoffs, which means that is a serious injury, right? Like if you're considering putting Tom Brady on an injury list, one of two things is happening. Either you're just trying to mess with the other team, which, it's not above the Patriots to do that. And if the league investigates that could be another Patriots scandal in and of itself, which I feel like Bill Belichick is aware of. I feel like he's not just doing this to mess with all of us. I hope. Which means that the other option is the only other option, right? Which is that Tom Brady is actually injured. Now, if Tom Brady is actually injured, right? Well, what this means is that the starter at quarterback, if Tom Brady is actually injured, is Brian Hoyer, the Destroyer. And we already know that Brian Hoyer is bad. Now, if only there were a guy that the Patriots could put in play that was young, showed a lot of potential, showed a lot of promise. If only such a guy existed. If only there was a guy that the Patriots drafted that could step in, that would look a lot like Brady. He's got some experience winning some games with the team before. If only that guy existed. Oh, yeah. That guy is Jimmy Garoppolo, and they traded him to San Francisco for a second rounder. Oh, actually, that guy actually does exist already. Yeah. Jimmy Garoppolo. They already traded him. Yeah. They already traded that guy. Yep. Yep. They already traded him. I don't know what to tell you, man. They already traded Garoppolo. So now what? I mean, is this not the weirdest thing? That's exactly why you don't trade a guy like Jimmy Garoppolo. Right? Now, the rumors and reports surrounding this whole story, right? Because Seth Wickersham of ESPN wrote a story about this already. And the Wickersham story basically details that Tom Brady did not want Jimmy Garoppolo on the team. And he didn't want Jimmy Garoppolo on the team because Tom Brady's very familiar with how this goes, right? One day you get replaced because Tom Brady once replaced Drew Bledsoe. So Brady already knows the replacement game. He did did it to somebody. That was the beginning of Tom Brady's career, was doing the very thing that Jimmy Garoppolo was threatening to do to him. So Tom Brady doesn't want Garoppolo on the team. Tom Brady goes over Bill Belichick. This is what the story alleges. I don't know. But Seth Wickersham is a really good writer, and he's a very trusted journalist, right? Like if he has a reason to make this stuff up, I mean, just, the Patriots always go after him, but Seth Wickersham's got a good reputation, okay? So I don't believe that Seth Wickersham sat down and fabricated this whole story, right? So Wickersham alleges that Brady went over the top of Belichick, his coach, went to the owner, Robert Kraft, and said to Robert Kraft, I want Garoppolo out of here. And Robert Kraft picked up the phone, and Jimmy Garoppolo was out on the next thing smoking. Right? Like, that was what it was. And if that is true, Tom Brady might have jeopardized the New England Patriots, and this Bill Belichick can't be happy. He can't be happy because Bill Belichick is the guy that doesn't mind replacing people. Okay? This is what he does. There isn't a single person on the New England Patriots outside of Tom Brady himself that isn't entirely replaceable. And the question always was, well, what if Tom Brady were one of those replaceable pieces too? And we're getting to the stage in Tom Brady's career where that is actually a thought that you are having, where Brady's replaceable, right? He's getting old. There are things that he can no longer do. He no longer drives the football down the field. And by the way, he's not the only one. We're seeing a bunch of great quarterbacks struggle to do this, right? Drew Brees threw an interception last week that just boggles the mind. But when you consider the fact that Drew Brees used to throw that ball a whole lot farther, it really doesn't. Drew Brees used to be able to throw that ball a whole lot farther, and he can't anymore because he's old. We're seeing it with Brady. They have taken that offense and they have made it old man friendly, let's say. They've made it so that Tom Brady doesn't have to throw the ball deep on every play, because I don't think that he has 9 or 10 of those throws in his arm a game. I think he's got 3. And you take those shots, you time those shots and try and take them when you can. But Brady's not ripping apart the field like he used to. And you have to think that Jimmy Garoppolo is a guy that could very easily replace Tom Brady. And now Tom Brady is injured. He may not be able to go on Sunday. And if he can't go on Sunday, I'm telling you right now, the Patriots have no chance of winning that football game. None. None. If Tom Brady can't play on Sunday, you think Brian Hoyer is going up against that defense? Ben Roethlisberger threw 7 interceptions against the Jaguars this year. Right? I think he threw 6 interceptions and he had a fumble. That's 7 turnovers against the Jaguars this year. And Ben Roethlisberger, I think we can all agree, is an elite quarterback. That's Ben Roethlisberger. You think Brian Hoyer is figuring this thing out? Because I don't. I have no belief in it whatsoever. That Marcel Darius in that pass rush, with Jalen Ramsey stepping up and playing like a bad dude. Like, you're telling me that Brian Hoyer's figuring this thing out? Boy, I know Bill Belichick wishes he had Garoppolo. And I know he's mad about it. Right? And by the way, Belichick was mad about this before when he threw out the team doctor. And why did he throw out the team doctor? Because the team doctor was actually Tom Brady's doctor. There's a little bit of a rift between Brady and Belichick right now. I mean, it exists. I don't know how deep it is. I'm not going to stand here and try and speculate on how far down that goes. But if we are to believe the report of ESPN Seth Wickersham, which I do, because journalism is hard, and you don't put your neck out there if you don't believe that the story can be substantiated if it ever had to be. Right? Like, we have this belief that the media just makes stuff up. I don't think so. I think that the media makes up narratives. I think that we make up stories with regards to, well, we find storylines where there aren't really. But I don't think that the media sits down and makes up facts. That doesn't happen. And it doesn't happen because if you do and you get caught, your career is ruined. You never report anywhere ever again. You might as well just start working at Walmart tomorrow. If you say you have sources and your sources ultimately backfire on you, go ahead and get a job at Amazon, my man. You're done. Especially in the sports media, because, I mean, it's cutthroat. It's cutthroat. People will step over you to get above you. I mean, it's no one is helping you. It's a brutal process. So I believe Seth Wickersham, because he's got a lot to lose if the story turns out to be false. So there is some level of a rift between Brady and Belichick. I don't know how deep it goes. But Brady did go over the top of Belichick because it doesn't make any sense that the Patriots would trade Jimmy Garoppolo in the middle of the season for a second rounder when they could have traded him before the season started for a first, or maybe multiple firsts. There were lots of teams that wanted Garoppolo in the offseason, and the Patriots didn't trade him. And I think that Bill Belichick was going to replace Tom Brady, and I think that Tom Brady did not want to be replaced. Because how many quarterbacks have we seen get replaced? And when they get replaced, the end of their career is not good. I'm pretty sure Peyton Manning is the only guy that got replaced with his reputation still intact. Because it very rarely does it happen the way that it goes with Peyton, where Peyton Manning is in Indianapolis his whole career. He gets replaced by Andrew Luck, and he still gets to end his career with a Super Bowl. Like that does not happen. And it's not like he played particularly well, but because he won the Super Bowl at the end, people are going to remember the Super Bowl. Doesn't usually go that way. Usually goes the way that it goes with Joe Montana, right? Who was the greatest of all time before Brady. Joe Montana gets replaced by Steve Young. He's got a couple of good seasons in Kansas City before it all comes apart, man. And I mean, it all came apart. And Joe Montana, even Joe Montana, looked terrible in the uniform that he should never have been wearing. That's how this usually goes. So I can understand Brady not wanting to be replaced. But that's obviously affected the team now. Because if he can't go, because you know what happens if Jimmy Garoppolo's there? And if Jimmy Garoppolo plays well, but Brady is able to return to health, and they go to the Super Bowl, they would start Brady. Now they might not go to the Super Bowl. Right? They lose to Jacksonville. They're not going. Okay? It's not happening. And so to me, this story that has been brewing for months and months and months is now coming to a head. This Tom Brady's hurt. And might be seriously hurt. I don't know the extent of the injury. The Patriots obviously aren't saying, because they'd rather not. So the league would like to make all of this stuff available. The injury just happened today. I think the Patriots sit on this injury as long as possible. And when they finally give an explanation, when they're forced to give an explanation, they're going to give you an explanation that is as vague as possible. Right? Like that's what we're going to do. That's what we're doing with this. You're listening to all new Nooga Radio, NoogaRadio.com, 92.7 FM. So one thing to note about this current NBA season, just jumping to the NBA here. I'm not going to get deep into the actual, like basketball talk and who's, the early MVP. I'm not going to lie, I'm not overly concerned with that stuff until after the NBA All-Star Weekend. Once that happens, and was that February? Once that happens, I'll start talking a little bit more NBA. I don't really talk very much at this point in the year. It's just too early. It's like baseball. With baseball, I talk about opening day, and then leave me alone until like halfway through the season. Right? Unless the Braves are really good. if the Braves are really good, we'll talk the Braves. But they haven't been really good. They haven't even been like regular good, much less really good, for a couple of years. It's been tough going trying to talk about the Braves on a daily basis. But man, something has gone wrong in the NBA. We've had a number of stories where, man, I don't know what's happening. Have we entered some kind of alternate timeline that no one told me about? Because we had a bunch of technicals and ejections be issued over the last couple of days. I believe technicals issued. We got 21 technicals issued in 2 days, which is crazy. And we also had a number of stories that can only be described as the most weird thing you've ever seen in your life or ever heard of in your life. Right? So we had that story with the Clippers the other day, with the Rockets and the Clippers, because the Clippers traded Chris Paul to the Rockets. And Chris Paul heard that somebody inside of the Clippers organization was talking mess about him. And Chris Paul was not going to stand for it. So Chris Paul, grown man Chris Paul, got a bunch of Rockets players together to sneak into the Clippers locker room. And find who was talking mess about him for the sole purpose of beating this person up. Right. This is happening with grown men. Grown men are doing this right now. This is what is going on. Right? And I'm talking about a full-on strategic plan where I forget who it was that went to the front door to knock on the front door. I think was it Trevor Ariza? To be the Trojan horse. And everybody was going to sneak into the back of the locker room, the back door of the locker room. And beat the guy up. That happened. Right? So Trevor Ariza knocks on the front door to try and get into the locker room so they can beat someone up. There was a secret tunnel. Chris Paul knew about the secret tunnel. They were sneaking through the secret tunnel. They were going to beat somebody up inside of the Clippers locker room. How is that possible? I'm not like I don't even know what to say. I don't have words for what that story is. And that's only one of the weirdest stories, because the other story involves the Cavs and the Warriors. They matched up again, right? They play a hard-fought game, because this is a rivalry that is developing. And this is one of those rivalries that's developing that is a rare rivalry, right? Like we've seen it with the Celtics and the Lakers back in the 80s. It's a rare rivalry to have a team on the West Coast and a team on the East Coast go back and forth like that. Right? They've played each other enough times that there's a genuine hatred brewing there. The Warriors ultimately win the game. But listen, and this is where it gets wild. LeBron James, because LeBron James is the most passive-aggressive human that there is. LeBron James somehow cuts off the hot water in the Warriors locker room so that nobody can have a hot shower on that basketball team. Everyone's showering in the cold. Everyone. Because that's what LeBron James wanted. Now, I don't know what that tells you about anything. That LeBron James has enough power inside of that organization to have the hot water cut off in a specific room in the building. But he did it. He had the hot water cut off. And what I'm trying to understand right now is what on earth is happening in that sport, right? Like, it all caught me off guard because I wasn't, like I said, I wasn't paying attention to it very much. I don't talk a ton of NBA until after the All-Star break. Mostly because there's not like much left to talk about it. Super Bowl, really. We got NASCAR and NBA. That's what we got, man. No, that's what it is. And I, you know, trying to hold off on that because that's not the priority right now. But someone explained to me what is happening in the NBA. We get 21 technicals and ejections. We have a guy turning off the hot water in the other team's locker room. We've got players sneaking through secret tunnels to beat up members of the other team for trash talking. The NBA is a wild, wild place right now. And I literally cannot explain how it is that we got here. I have no explanation. Except that we've entered some kind of dark, alternate timeline. You're listening to Clutch with Keon Rose on all new Nooga Radio and NoogaRadio.com here on 92.7 FM. Remember, folks, it's not how you start, it's how you finish. Stay warm. Stay clutch. And I'll see you in 24 hours.
Truex Jr. is on